And Roger Wicker's joining us.
I should have known this, but I didn't until 2 years ago.
What?
30 million workers have to sign non-compete agreements
Really?
with the jobs they take. 30 million. So a cashier at a burger place can't walk across town and take the same job at another burger place and make a few bucks more.
Senator Roger Wicker, good morning, sir. How are you?
Unbelievable. I cannot tell you how many McDonald's workers have called me about that. The fact that they'd like to go down the street and work for Chick-fil-A, but they're prevented from doing so. I mean, this it's totally devoid of facts or reality.
I think actually bordering on not only embarrassing, but I couldn't figure out if this was actually real or was it Saturday Night Live. I mean, that's just embarrassing. Anybody out there that had to sign a non-compete to go from Burger King to McDonald's, call me. I'd love to hear that.
It's not unusual to hear him say something like that.
I know.
But, I mean, this was prepared by speechwriters. It was approved. And, I mean, I can see him ad-libbing it in some interview on the street. But, the main thing is he's given us 13.5% inflation. I mean, prices are up that much. From the day he took office, when basically prices were stable. He said the other day, this inflation was around when I took office. Well, that's not true. It was like 1.1% when he took office. It was very manageable. And by pouring $4 trillion of tax and spend during his reconciliation bills, prices are outpacing wages for Americans, and he couldn't talk about that.
Well, he also
said
Senator,
about oil and gas, we're gonna need that for the next 10 years or so, and then parenthetically he didn't add until, of course, we run you out of business right after that. Yeah. So and then don't get me started on the border.
I know. Here's the cut that he said last.
A lot of new border protection, folks. Suddenly, when he gave the signal to the world that the border was open, and that's what the world heard, and they have come, and it's now the cartels controlling the southern border from the Mexican side, rather than the American government controlling it from our side.
I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade, and that's going to exceed and beyond that. We're going to need it. I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade.
I think the laughter threw him off, or he probably thought, hey, I'm getting a crowd here. I'm going to continue. I have no idea if he knew where he was or what he was doing.
Listen, I was sitting between Mike Ezell and Michael Guest from Mississippi, two of my brothers in the House of Representatives, and we really weren't in the peanut gallery. We were over to the side, quietly listening and shaking our heads. But it was I would say it was the most raucous State of the Union appearance I've ever seen.
Oh, I don't disagree with you at all.
The president started it as just a pep rally, and I don't know if you could see watching it, just the fist pumping and dumping up and down over on the Democratic side. It's gotten out of hand, but that was a laughable statement on the part of the president. And one minute he's talking about bipartisanship, and then the 90% of the speech was just a huge partisan attack.
I wish I had more.
To behold.
I wish I had more time with you, and I know I'm pushing you a little bit on this one, but I understand we only got one segment here, and because of
I've got to go to our Republican retreat, and it's in another building across the way. So,
but as ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, are we going to have some hearings on these balloons or what?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Marco Rubio, the ranking member of the Intel Committee, and I, as the ranking member of Armed Services, are sending a letter to the administration. We're finalizing it this morning. We will have a hearing tomorrow, and it will probably need to be classified. You wouldn't want it to be public, but there'll also be some information that we'll be able to reveal. But
we'll just read that later when it's in his garage.
When did they know it? Did they tell? Did they keep it from the president? Did the president try to keep it from the public? I'll tell you, Paul, I talked to the Secretary of Defense day before yesterday, and I was amazed at how evasive he was. I said, when did you hear about this? He said, well, I was in Asia at the time. Well, my impression was we had communications between Alaska and Asia.
Yeah.
So it was a very unsatisfactory, evasive conversation between the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee and the Secretary of Defense. And I don't wish him any ill, but we're the folks that the people have put in place as a check on power, and he owes us answers.
Isn't there another question too, Senator, where if Trump did not know about this and there were balloons earlier, who was holding that from him, or do we know it one way or the other? These people are trying to talk themselves out of a box and do damage control, but it just gets worse.
Well, I think those earlier balloons, if I may coin a phrase, I think that story was overblown. There may have been some incursions, around some island chains or Guam or something like that, but nothing. I think it's been confirmed. If you will look at the sources today, the Biden administration has walked those back, and those. As they used to say in another administration, those statements are now inoperative.
Just to say the least. I think he was one of the most raucous moments in there, and I've got two, and we'll play one when you in the next segment. But here was if you watch this guy on video, the amount of anger that you heard from him, it turns on and off, is a little bit scary.
United States of America, 13th in the world in infrastructure. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one.
It's a little scary to watch him do that.
Well, I looked over to Mike Ezel when he said that, and I said, what is he talking about?
Everybody said that.
But, he was certainly said it forcefully.
Yeah, yeah.
But, it really, the question is, what has his stewardship meant for the American people? And what it has meant is millions of people coming across the border uninvited. Even when Obama was president, that did not happen. And the purchasing power of the dollar dropping by 13% plus in 2 short years. I mean, it's those are the real questions. I'll say he ate his Wheaties before he came. And he was all pumped up.
But who wrote that thing, though? I mean, just the way they wrote that
are still there, and they're going to be there.
Yeah. This one, real quickly here, because I'll squeeze it in later. I want the folks to hear the one about the fentanyl, because there was an eruption from the Republicans on there that were shouting two things. It's the border, number one, and you're at fault. And there was some feedback. I mentioned earlier, it almost sounded like a session of Parliament instead of the State of the Union.
I didn't hear. I wasn't able to listen because I'm on Washington, D.C. radio, but I heard that you had said that. Yeah. Listen, the State of the Union shouldn't be like
about 10 seconds left
at Parliament, but I guess we've come to that.
Yeah.
I remember during the Obama administration when my friend from South Carolina, Joe Wilson, shouted out, "You lie!"
I do,
and he had to get
back in just a moment
out. Apologies now to Joe Wilson for being chastised for that.